Good evening, Camby. Welcome to the May 4th, 2022 regular city council meeting. We've just come out of an urban renewal agency meeting and an exec session, which we'll be discussing this evening. Before we move into the invocation, I'm just going to ask for a moment of silence. Last week, Alyssa Netter unexpectedly passed away. And the Netter family is a longtime Canby family. She was an all-state Canby softball player, very involved in the schools. The family have been in Canby for a long time as builders and developers, and just made Canby kids a passion of theirs. And she leaves behind her husband and 4 kids. And so just do a moment of silence for her and her family. I'd appreciate that. Thanks. Great. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is the oath of office for our newly, or about to be appointed, City Councilor Art Marine. Art, if you would come down front here and join Judge Rod Graff. He will swear you in and have you sign your life over to the city of Canby. You are now soon to be a man of the people.
Over here, or else the microphone won't pick you up, and I have to tell you that this is your last chance.
Okay, well, hopefully I only need one.
Okay, so raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, the undersigned,
I, Art Marine,
being duly sworn,
depose and say
that I am a qualified elector of the city of Canby,
that I'm a qualified elector of the city of Camby,
and that I have resided in the city of Canby, Oregon,
and that I've resided in the city of Camby, Oregon,
for not less than 12 months, immediately prior to the city council appointment on May 4th, 2022.
immediately prior to the city council appointment on May 4th, 2022.
And that I will support the Constitution and laws
And I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Oregon,
and the state of Oregon,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of City Councilor
of the office of city councilor
of the city of Canby, Oregon,
of the city of Canby, Oregon,
to which I have been appointed.
to which I have been appointed.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. So, not for that. You need to sign that, and then I'll go ahead and sign there. Great. This isn't fair. You can actually read his signature.
Judge Graff, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Officially, Councilor Marine, welcome to the Canby City Council.
Thank you.
It's a nice light meeting, so it's easy into it, right?
Yeah.
Well, perfect. So next on our agenda is the opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. So it's an opportunity for citizens of Canby to address the council on non-agenda items or to announce any events or activities going on. Do we have anybody zooming in tonight? We have nobody zooming in, and I have no yellow cards. I was gonna say, if you wanted to address the council, please fill out a yellow card, which is located on the podium in the back. Hand it to our city recorder, and you get an opportunity to address us as you wish. I have none, so we are gonna move into presentation of the annual report from the Heritage and Landmark Commission. And Ms. Jarosh, hello.
I'm not sure how we want to do this.
Would you like to pull up the presentation? Or I can pull it up.
I have it on my laptop thumb drive.
A
What?
thumb drive? That's great.
Okay. I come prepared. There's a PDF and a PowerPoint, but it doesn't really matter which. Jerry, this looks familiar to you probably.
We'll share from here.
Thank you, thank you. All right, we're ready. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Welcome, Councilor Marine. Nice to meet you. May is National Heritage Month, and we very much appreciate the opportunity to honor that by presenting to you tonight the Heritage and Landmark Commission's annual report. So thank you. Heritage is like air. You don't walk around thinking about it, really. Even I don't. It's out of sight, out of mind. Not very sexy. One way we know this is because if you think about the plethora of television shows that are out there, there's not much about heritage, really. And so the other night, the HLC was brainstorming a bit. If we had a reality show, what would that be? Would it be Grant's Gone Wild? Dancing with the Canby Founders? Keeping Up with the Kinsman Foundation, that's our favorite. But really, our work very much resembles the show Chopped. You know, the Food Channel show where they get a basket of ingredients like a fish head and marshmallow peeps, and they have to do something with them. And our work, particularly our grant work, is very much like that. And it would be as if we opened up our basket, and in the basket it said, "Congratulations, you received a $692.32 grant from a random couple in Tennessee." That's no joke. And with this grant, you can buy paper clips. And you may use those paper clips on Wednesday. And while you're doing that, you have to solve the homeless problem and come up with the new coconut water. And then you must be finished by June 1st at 12:01 p.m. And when you're done, you must ask Tyler Nizer to submit many, many photos and a 900-page report to a state grant system that makes the abacus look modern. Tyler had to do this for us recently, and he did an excellent job. So anyway, this is our world. You know, it's a challenge. It's finicky, persnickety, detail-oriented, but you know what? We love it. So I'm excited to open up our basket tonight for you, our chop basket, if you will, and show you the ingredients we got and what we've been doing with them. So is this PowerPoint or? Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll talk about who we are, who are the folks, the volunteers involved in this, how we prioritize our work, where do those work requests come from, what we've been doing in the last 12 months, a little bit about data and demographics that we've been collecting about the heritage and history of our town, anything you have for us, and some requests for you. So these are the folks on the HLC. I know I'm biased, but I think they're awesome. And we don't look like a diverse group, I suppose, but our backgrounds are really quite diverse. Some are formally trained and highly educated history folks. We have a person who has an advanced degree in archaeology. We have folks who live in town, out of town. We have one person that doesn't even live in Canby. Some folks that live in historic homes that they've lovingly restored and had registered on the historic register. Moms, retirees, you name it. I'm the oddball because I'm a project manager and a data person, but we use this diverse background to get an amazing amount of work done. It really is a wonderful group, and we get along really well, we have fun, and it's the kind of work that we really, really enjoy. All right, so We get our work from a lot of places, and we like that. We do have, every year we sit down and we do an annual plan of what can we do, what do we need to do, what's required, what can we squeeze in, but things always come out of the woodwork. And so one of the things that drive our work, you may remember, this is Camby's Historic Preservation Plan. It was developed in 2020 by a consulting firm to help guide our heritage efforts. And so this has a laundry list of recommendations, some of which we'll do and some of which we won't. But every year we do pull out this plan and we look at, where are we at? Are we spinning the dials? What do we need to do? And so this is a roadmap for us. We also get requests from citizens, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It happens every year. You perhaps, or Canby staff, we work a lot with Dawn Hardy in the planning department. We align with state heritage goals. The State of Oregon Heritage Council does goals every year, and we work to see what we can do to help them spin their dials, so to speak. So that's always fun. We do a lot of collaborative work with other heritage organizations and also with city activities that are taking place. And sometimes we hear from business leaders. I had a meeting 2 days ago with Chris Stutz. You probably know him of Cornerstone Wealth Management, and he's in a historic building. And we had quite a bit of discussion about, that and his business. So it was really interesting. We also keep our ears to the ground and listen for any winds of grant availability. New grants come up all the time, even from random people in Tennessee. We've had grants from them. It's really interesting. And then some large philanthropic organizations. And then we attend conferences, we get ideas from them. And then we work along with our planning code, the heritage section of our planning code, which drives some of our activities. Okay, this is our year, our last 12 months at a glance. So I will touch quickly on each of these, and some I'll deep dive. This work is very exciting to me. So I might talk fast because I get excited. So if you have any questions or concerns or just a comment, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. So up at the top, grant work is really what drives a lot of our activities. We search out grants, we write the grant applications, which sometimes takes a significant effort of research, and they're very, like I said, fiddly and very specific. And then we submit the grant applications to various organizations, and then we manage the projects, and we hire consultants or vendors or contractors and manage the projects. So we got a couple going on right now. This year, it's called the Certified Local Government Grant. We'll talk about that in detail, and then one for our Zion Memorial Cemetery. And those are the two we're working on this year, that we have been working on this year. Part of the grant, one of the grants, is that we're working with a very detailed study of the fairgrounds. It's state speak. It's called a intensive level survey, and we're just documenting what we have out there. The property, the buildings, the state of the buildings, the history of the buildings, the trees, the racetrack, you name it. And really, it's just a matter of, again, knowing what we have in a very detailed way. And so once we get that done, the consultants, we met with them actually today on that, and we'll have a detailed report about that and then decide where do we want to take that, what do we do with it. And then on the upper right in the green, you may recognize that's Judy Oss. She gets around in this town, I'm telling you. So that's Judy and yours truly, scrubbing a headstone. So Judy is the head of the Mark Prairie Historical Society, and we collaborate with them quite a bit. They had a disastrous situation with the ice storm, and so they're working on rebuilding the one-room schoolhouse. And we help them with some grant analysis and research, and also with contractors. And I live near there, so I actually go let the contractors in the door. And anyway, people have been coming and going a lot. And so somebody said, hey, those headstones, they need a scrubbing. And the Mark family's buried there. And so Judy called and said, we know you guys do this, and you know how, can you come help us? And of course. And these are the things we do. This was last October. It was a beautiful day, and Judy and Bert took our picture. Anyway, we scrubbed the headstones, and they look beautiful. City collabs. So we've got multiple activities going on with that. With the city arch, there are some plaques to be installed on the arch, commemorative plaques. And for the ones that are heritage or history commemorative, we wrote the content. Jennifer Giller, who's part of the HLC, wrote the content for those. And Ron Byrne, he's on the HLC, and he is our liaison, if you will, for any logging trail activities, so that if there's something heritage that comes up, whether it's maybe indigenous signage or something like that, he makes sure to coordinate. So we stay in close, proximity with each other. And then just to the left of that, our preservation plan recommendations, as I said, we go through this and we check off what we progress every year. This isn't all of it, but these are probably some that are pretty significant. Let's see, I should talk about the second one, which Don Hardy helped us work with. The county did not have data about the properties in our town that were registered historic. And so we had a little mishap, as you know, with the historic city hall, and that was part of the reason. So Don worked with the county a lot to get them to finally include in their database the information about Camby's heritage registered properties. So at least we don't have, we're on the same page about that now. And then maybe the last one is we work, one of our goals, and I know yours is too, is to increase the voices of many of our activities. And so with heritage, we want to do that too. So when Jennifer Giller was working on the plaque content, one of the plaques commemorates the indigenous history of our area. I don't think that's ever been done in our town before, and so we'll see that at the ribbon cutting. But Jennifer wrote up a very good document and we sent that to the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde, and they edited it and gave it back to us, and they were very appreciative that Camby is taking that step to recognize that history. I know that's a goal of yours too, as all of us, for increased voices. Let's see, then in the blue, Zion Cemetery data and demographics. We've been doing a lot of work out there, scrubbing headstones, so we've been collecting data, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. To the right of that, we tested a concept. We're always looking for outreach, letting people know who we are, what we do, trying to get volunteers, members. So we tested a concept for what we call the Heritage Pub Night, which was basically a discussion of something heritage related for Canby, and we did it at Wayward Sandwiches. And I can't say it was an epic fail, because it was really, really well received by the 4 people who were there. So Matt Morrissey couldn't have been more gracious. He's like, Judy, it was a slow night. I would try it another night, or maybe try a different topic, and we'll figure this out. And I said, that's on the back burner. Again, heritage, it's not, anyway. And then we thought, he said, well, maybe we could do a heritage trivia night. And I said, I wouldn't want to ruin your trivia nights, And then on the bottom there, we have a big collaboration going on right now. Carol Palmer, who you know, and she was the chair of the Heritage Landmark Commission. She's had to resign from that, but she is working many, many hours behind the scenes. We're trying to get the depot registered on the Register of Historic Places to get that building protected, and it's not. And so Carol's been doing a lot of research. And Doug Birkland, who's on the HLC, he's lived in Canby forever. And we tried to get this done, I think it was in the 90s. We tried to get the state to think about registering it for us, and they poo-pooed that notion because it was moved. It used to be down on Grant. But the reason it was moved is because the railroad said they were expanding, and they said, we're either going to tear it down or you move it, one or the other. You move it, we tear it down. So in 1982, Doug was part of a big committee that lasted for 2 years to get it moved, which was no easy feat, and get the property and figure out where it was, and hammer in hand. And so when I mentioned to him we were having some difficulty with the state, he said to me, I know every nail in that building, and if the state has any problem with the fact that we moved it, you tell them to talk to me. And I don't know if any of you know Doug, and I'm not making fun, because it's that passion that really helps us protect things that matter to our town. And so that we have that oral history now that now we've documented that oral history as part of our application. And that information about how it was moved, all the work that we did as a city to save that, as a heritage resource, and hope the state, appreciates that. But having that oral history documented really adds some perfume to our application, which is going in pretty soon. So cross fingers, we'll see how that goes. And then we do cemetery work for our historic cemeteries, and we started with Baker Prairie for 3 years, and now we've been working on Zion for 3 years. We'll talk more about that. And then up above that is sometimes we get requests from people who move into a historic property or a neighborhood that might be concerned about something, and they'll reach out to us, and we talk about the history of their property and what might be available to them should they want to protect it from a heritage registration perspective. And then above that, this last year, we had a public hearing to approve the changes to the historic city hall. That went well. And then on the left, we do a lot of collaborations where we will write a letter of recommendation or we'll pass a resolution, and that helps other groups get grant funding. So we can show our city and our HLC support of an activity. We do that quite a bit. And then we attend conferences, heritage conferences, and we're lucky. They're very inexpensive or free, and they're local or Zoom. So we always attend. There's a historic cemetery, Oregon Historic Cemeteries meeting. There are 4 a year. Seems odd, but there are. We have an Oregon Heritage Summit and a certified local government workshop. I attended a conference last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the Oregon Heritage Conference. People like us from cities all over the state. And I'd share that with you, but my head is still swimming. And honestly, that becomes the content of our basket for this year's work. And so lots of great ideas. Cities are doing lots of great things. So part of the grant money that we have right now, you'll be seeing this soon, is a neighborhood. It's called State Speak, reconnaissance level survey, but it's a detailed inventory of specific parts of our neighborhoods that have heritage buildings. So you'll see more about that. Next. All right, so we spend a lot of time on this. We call it CLG. This is State Speak. What are we doing this for, and where are we going with this, and to what end? So we are a certified local government, according to the state, and the city went through quite an effort to become that. And that, so for instance, we need a Heritage and Landmark Commission to be a certified local government, and that opens up grant money that unless you're a CLG, you're not going to get this money that's funded by the State Historic Preservation Office, or what we call SHPO. So they're funding these tasks for us so we can kind of peel the onion of the heritage resources we have in our town. Buildings, lots, empty spaces, could be bridges, could be roads, could be trails, could be docks, all sorts of things. And so we use this money to document at a lower and lower level of detail these resources, why they might matter, and what to do about that. And there's a long process that goes with this. And so every year we bite off a little bit of this. The process isn't quite as linear as I make it look, but I just thought it would be helpful to explain where we're headed with this, and just keep a dialogue going. So what we do is we think, which area do we want to know about now? Which area of the town, the city? We've been focusing on the north side of town. Maybe we want to do some of the south side where there might be some homes that are worth thinking about as important to our town or to the history of our town, or something, a road or a bridge. And so we tell the county what we're interested in. They give us a list of addresses. And the first thing we do is we drive by them. We get in the car and we drive around and we look at them, and we have to do that before we submit for a grant. And so for instance, it'll give you a list and say, this house at this address was built in 1910. This happened last year. We did a small, what they call windshield survey. And we drove up, and I was excited to see this house, 1910, and we drove up to it, and the first thing I thought of was the house that's in the movie Beetlejuice. So we immediately took that off the list, and it had been changed in the 70s. So what we do is we whittle down the list, and then we bring in consultants. Consultants are required for the next part, which the state calls a reconnaissance level survey. Again, that's just another layer of the onion where we're documenting these properties. They go out, this is Katie and Spencer, who we've been working with, I don't know, a few years now, And they stand outside the buildings. Well, first of all, Jamie's department sends the property owners a postcard, so they know somebody's gonna be walking around taking pictures, and they will call the police. And sometimes they come out and talk to Katie and Spencer, and, you know, what's going on, and what do you think about my place? And so they take pictures that are very specifically formatted for the state, and they use their expert judgment and, you know, their expertise to determine what type of property it is. You know, is it something that the state would consider contributing? Is there something about that that's worth taking a hard look at? You know, is this an example of a classic house for a certain period of time, or is this in a row of homes or row of buildings that might be really important, you know, just to think about, do we want to save those properties, or do the property owners want to save or protect those properties? And so we do a lot of that. We've probably done, I should have counted, we've probably done 500 properties, and we're doing some more right now. We'll do more next year. And this also information is not just from a heritage perspective, but it's really helpful for like the planning department, because, you know, when we're doing this housing analysis that we're doing, housing needs analysis, you know, if we're looking at a neighborhood and we know we might need to make some changes in that neighborhood to support housing requirements, we know what we have. We have a list of what we have. Or we may know, oh, here's an area or maybe a block where the people might be sensitive to some changes because they know what they've got. So let's get ahead of it. We know these people might have a lot of questions, so we can reach out to them, you know, purposefully and talk to them about it. So having this information is valuable in many different ways, in addition to it being a stepping stone, as I show here. So then the next piece is if Katie and Spencer, whoever, they identify properties or resources that are special for some reason, then they do the next level of surveying, and that's called state speak, intensive level survey. And that's a very, very detailed dialogue, discussion, history about the property and all the specific history about why it's important to our city. And again, many more pictures that are very specific to what the state requires and any changes that were made, or was it moved, or, you know, lots and lots. It's pretty intensive. And each one costs $2,000. And a property owner could pay for that if they wanted to, but so far we've been covering that with grant money. And we've done 12 in our city. We'll be doing one more next year. And so we just take some that we've identified or they've identified as being something that might be worthy of protection. Then a next step could be that the property could be registered either on the National Register of Historic Places if it's super special, like the Night House on Southwest 4th or Southwest 4th? Or they can be on the state register. And so far we've had the one property that's on the National Register, and we have others that are on the state register. Then what some cities are doing is they're starting to develop little historic districts. It's like an overlay, and it could be a block. It could be more than that. But let me talk about, so there's a picture of a pony there. So there's a story to this. So some of you know, I used to work for Nike's CIO, an Oregon guy, grew up on a farm, crazy smart man. And if I was presenting something like this to him, like a project plan, or saying, you know, we need to do these steps to get to this goal, or for sales goals or something, and if he was irritated with me, which he often was, he would use a farmyard analogy of some sort. So I'd be talking about these things, and he'd say, Judy, there better be a pony behind that pile. And I'd say, I know it's a pile, Gordon, it's a pile, but there's a pony. So here's our pony. If we decide to go that way, if we go through these steps, then it opens up. It's almost like the Wizard of Oz when she lands and opens, you know, the door. It opens up a window of grants that are unbelievable. Kinsman grants kick in, a lot of other grants that have a very high hurdle rate. So as an example, in Astoria, they have done these steps. They have a small historic district. Some of the buildings have been registered, and they applied for one building alone last year. They received, for one building, a Kinsman grant of $250,000. You know, our grants average about $30,000, $40,000 a year. That's chump change compared to what happens if we go through these steps. So we step back and look at this and say, okay, that's recommended in here. And one of the reasons it's recommended in here is because they surveyed citizens. And our citizens said, we like our quaint downtown and we want it to stay that way. How can we protect that? This is the way. Will we get there? I don't know. But I think what we should best do is just keep on keeping on, getting the grants and continue having a dialogue until we decide this isn't the direction we're going to go in anymore, because this information is valuable no matter what. So anyway, I hope that explains some of what we've been up to. Okay. And then the other grant that we're working on, like we've had 8 years of grants, 3 years for Baker Prairie, which was led by Carol Palmer. And so we use these grants every year. We hire a contractor that comes in and does repair work on the headstones. And this is the last of a 5-year project. So this year he will finish up all of the repair work in the historic section, which has 1,700 burials. And so it was a significant amount of work to get this done, and now it'll be done this June. And then we have a day in September, you can go back, a day in September when we clean the headstones. And that's at the bottom there. And so there's Karina Kanan, who's one of our members. She's spraying. We use a special solution. It's quite expensive. And then we use special cleaning techniques. That's one of our members, Rachel Swanson, that's her son, and he's cleaning that with a bamboo skewer. And then the one on the left, you can see you can't read it until you scrub it. And some of these, people have asked me, when were they last cleaned? And the answer is never, unless families clean them, which we don't recommend. So what we're doing is when we scrub them, we uncover information that people haven't seen in decades, or maybe a century, I don't know. So now we can change. And so what do we do with that? Well, you've probably heard a little bit about this before, but we're updating all the data about the burials in the historic section. Again, there's 1,700. And if you look at the city website, there's a big section that says the historic section isn't mapped. Yeah, it is kind of. And so this exists, which Jerry was laughing about. So this is one section of 8 sections of the historic section of the cemetery. You'll see some notes here because sometimes we find that the burial record says Joe is here, but we find his headstone over here. These are old burials. And the records, this was last updated in the 70s, and the records are fairly incomplete and in some cases inaccurate. And historical data is always like that. It's pulled out of file folders and binders and notebooks and microfiche, and through no fault of the city. But as we've been doing this work, we've updated each burial as a record, and we've updated 97% of the records. So that's done now. And then what we did was what they call normalizing the data so that we could run analytics against it to learn more about the history of these people. So normalizing would be like, let's say one record says, Joe died in March, M-A-R-C-H, and the next record says Jane died in month 3. Well, you have to change that so you can run, I'm sorry, I'm in IT, mode, but so you can run analytics. And then we created a digitized map of all of this data so that now we have a map that can be searched. We've given this information to the Camby Historical Society. That's where most cities leave it. Cities really aren't in the business of maintaining historical data. We could update our website. We could probably get a grant to do that, but I don't know that we need to. Then you see there's a note called Find a Grave. That's a website. It's a legit website that has 200 million records in it. It's crowdsourced, which means anybody can put things in there. And our cemeteries and many, many other cemeteries, the data is in there. It's not as complete as what we now have. And it is a good system of record for burial information. The thing about Find a Grave, though, is it was started by a gentleman, just a grassroots effort, and he has since now sold it to Ancestry.com, which is probably a good thing. It's a nice website, but Ancestry's model is a for-profit model, so at some point we imagine they'll start charging for that. So it's nice to have our own searchable data that's actually more complete than what Find a Grave has. And a shout out to Rachel Swanson and HLC and her sons. They did a lot of this work out at the cemetery, walking up and down and updating the data that we had in the database. And Her sons just loved it. I mean, it's such a history story out there, and many, many good stories that you'll hear a little bit about. So I won't go into all these charts and graphs, but some of these we've just been doing because we have the data. But if you look at longevity, this is based on all 1,700 burials, most of which are like from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and these folks lived a long life. And that surprised me. And so then we also look at where did they come from. We have, this is on the bottom right, it's a heat map. You know, the darker the map, the more people. So we have it for the United States and for Europe. And as you can imagine, they came from Germany and Sweden, Norway, you name it. And then we looked at, well, how did they die? And the data is very much indicative of the time. So a big indicator there, it's hard to read, I know, that says dropsy or dynamite or train. Interesting stories out there. So what are we doing with this now? And the answer is, I'm not sure. But what we do know is from talking with other cities, we know that ancestry tourism is on the rise. People are finding their DNA, they're finding relatives they didn't know about, and cemetery tourism is on the rise. And so what some towns are doing is acknowledging that, and they're taking some of this data and they're creating, signage or, interpretive signage. Coos Bay just did some that just blew me away. And so you walk out to the cemetery and you see this information. And some cities are doing, let's see, Coos Bay also did this. They got together with some of the other towns nearby, and they created a brochure of historic cemetery, called the Historic Cemetery Trail. So people could visit different cemeteries in the area, which we have many, many small cemeteries besides Zion, which is the big one. And then Bandon created what they called a cemetery detective book. And it's meant for families or school kids or scouts, and they go out to the cemetery, and it's like a scavenger hunt. And it says, go to this section, this row, this grave site, and this is Abraham Lincoln's best friend, who, by the way, is in Zion. Or this person, and this one, we point this out a lot to people. There's a marker out there, a gentleman who fought in 3 wars, the Indian Wars, the Spanish-American War, and the Civil War. And oh, by the way, he volunteered when he was 13. So when I show that to people, especially young people, here's their response. Whoa. And we had one gentleman that was looking at it, and he said, I don't think I knew the word volunteer when I was 13. And so they're very impactful. I show them, here's a family of 4. They have a family plot. Mom and dad, 2 sons, they lived their lives. There's 4 headstones, but only 3 bodies. So why is that? What's the story there? And there are stories like there's a story there. Or these 4 people in 1930, a family of 4, they all had the same death date, and it wasn't a car accident. So what happened there? And it really gives people a slice of life of what happened in those days and how people lived and what they did. So our plan is we'll do something with this. We want to make it a happen-in place. Zion Cemetery might be happen-in place. I mean, it is beautiful. It's an adjunct park. I mean, the Public Works group, it's just amazing. We work a lot with Mike Nagano and the grounds crew. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I am out there a lot, and I've seen foxes and quail families, and I see people jogging or walking through with a stroller. It's a pretty fantastic, just sort of hidden away place. And the history of our city, in many cases, pardon the pun, is just laying there, So stay tuned. We'll figure out something to do with that. So next. So in closing, I guess I just, we don't say thank you enough for your support. Seriously, we really do. We enjoy what we do. We're a fun group. We like to keep doing a lot. So if there's something that you specifically want us to do or don't do, let us know. So to ask you, just keep us in your heads and hearts. Think about heritage a little more than air. Be our cheerleaders. Help people know what we're doing and that we do good work. And we also always need help recruiting. We've been short a member for a while, and there's only so many Jason Paddens to go around, right? Jason, if you're watching, shout out to Jason. We love you. But we do need volunteers, and not just for activities, but also we're short a member. So appreciate that too. So I guess in closing, Mr. Mayor and council members, I just I recognize that we serve at your pleasure, and I just want to ensure that you know it is our sincere pleasure to do so. So thank you very much. Watch out for that pony.
Judy, before you run off,
Yes, sir.
thank you for this presentation. I learned a lot in your presentation, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate also the work that this group has done over the years. It's definitely elevated not just our heritage and our history, but it's elevated, I think, what's to be or what could be expected from our committees and boards, but also shows those other boards and committees what can be done with a little effort and a little work. Because I think, something we've talked about, I think this committee and the Parks Board have been really the only ones that have come to the council and kind of given us any kind of an update. And so wanting to see that change in the future, but this definitely sets the bar very high for what I think we want to see from our boards and committees being active and engaged in our community. So great work. This is fantastic. I really do appreciate everything that you guys continue to get after and do. So there's a lot of really neat stuff that, I think many of us probably didn't even know was going on. So we appreciate the update. Councilor Parker, I know that you're the liaison for this committee. Did you want to add anything or?
Just the dedication of the group, a powerful group that's done an awful lot of work, and it's self-funded. It goes out and gets its own grants. So, there may come a time where the council may want to actually make some financial contributions, because there are a series of grants out there that you can get with volunteer hours as your local buy-in. But there are also others, a whole world that opens up if they actually have some cash in hand. Mm-hmm. So I've encouraged them to think about those things in the past, and as you see, they're successful with their money and the way they manage it. And I had forgotten that you were down one person, so we need to do a recruitment and get somebody out there. Thanks.
Yeah, if anyone's watching, we're the fun group. We have fun.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Roche?
I just want to thank you so much for all the work that your commission does. And it's really, there's been so many things over the last several years that you've done that have added to the city. And I sure appreciate that. And it's not lost on us. So
Thank you very much. It's a great group. Fantastic group.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So I grab my thumb drive. Thank you for your help.
All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the March 2nd, 2022 and March 16th, 2022 City Council regular meetings, and the full on-premises commercial OLCC liquor license for Mike's Place located at 404 Northwest First Avenue.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Varway to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the March 2nd, 2022 and March 2nd, 2022 City Council regular meetings and the full on-premise commercial OLCC liquor license for Mike's Place located at 404 Northwest First Avenue. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Moving into ordinances, we have a couple. The first one up is considering ordinance number 1570, an ordinance amending Camby's Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code, adding newly created code, Chapter 16.45 for food cart pods and modifying existing chapters in the title to be consistent with Chapter 16.45. It's our second reading. So this is, we discussed this at our last meeting, basically just an update, sorry, not a it's an update to code, but it now instills the ability to create food cart pods in the city of Canby, and just tightened up some other language pieces in that. Scott or Joe, is there anything else to add to that?
No, not really, Mr. Mayor. We did capture that at your first reading. You made a couple of edits to the proposed ordinance changes, and we've captured those. This is just a second reading. We do have Brianna from our planning department on standby on Zoom if needed, just to answer any questions, but and we're not going to pull her in to give you another staff report since we did that last time. So unless you have any questions, I think we're just recommending your approval of second reading.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve and adopt ordinance number 1570, an ordinance amending Camby's Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code, adding newly created Code Chapter 16.45 for food cart pods and modifying existing chapters in the title to be consistent with Chapter 16.5.
Motion's been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve ordinance number 1570, an ordinance amending Camby's Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code, adding newly created Code Chapter 16.45 for food cart pods and modifying existing chapters in the title to be consistent with Chapter 16.45. Roll call vote.
Councilor Bangs.
Aye.
Council President Hensley.
Aye.
Councilor Marine.
Aye.
Councilor Parker.
Aye.
Councilor Spoon.
Aye.
Councilor Varwig.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is concerning ordinance number 1571, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement, a CBA, between the city of Canby, Oregon and the Canby Police Association. Our first reading. Joe, I'll let you take that one.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. This ordinance will allow for us to have a 3-year contract with the Canby Police Association, which represents 23 of Canby's police employees. A new feature that I kind of want to brag about, and Mr. Archer made sure that this was in all of our staff reports, is now we are aligning your goals with our staff reports. So you will note that this particular action not only promotes financial stability and looks to align resources with future community growth. Keeping recruiting and retaining is a huge thing right now for all employees, and especially public safety employees. So this was a situation that we went into knowing that, you know, we kind of have a very high inflation rate, and we have somewhat volatility in our employment ranks, not here, but just in general. And so with that, we put together our team, which consisted of me and Melissa Bissett and Chief George Troe. And on the other side of things, they had a labor attorney named Mark Mackler as their lead. And then their now president, who in the midst of our negotiations actually became president, Jeffrey Johnson, Stephanie Anderson, Nolan Booth, and Maria DeLuna were all part of their negotiating team. We got together starting in January and had several negotiations. And then if you guys recall, Mr. Marine wasn't here, but the rest of you recall, we came back to you on numerous occasions with exec sessions to kind of parse out what the city could do in terms of concessions and things like that. And it was amicable, and we worked together really well. And I think we met their needs while meeting the city needs. And I think everybody's quite pleased with an outcome that, you know, in these times, it could have been, I think, a lot more difficult to try to get to what people are comfortable with because of inflation and such. And so I think happily it just speaks to the relationship that the city has with its police force, and that the relationship that you guys have in terms of respecting your workforce. So I appreciate that. It made my job a lot easier as we met, and you guys were super supportive of almost everything that they were asking. So with that, I will say it's a 3-year contract. We have cost of living adjustments baked in for the first 6 months, and then the second 6 months, third and fourth 6 months, and then we go to a similar model to our other AFSCME bargaining unit, which has a floor and a ceiling, and it's tied to an indicator so that we will be, nothing catastrophically low, nothing catastrophically high, but that we'll try to match up with actual cost of living adjustments moving into that 3rd year and moving into the future, hopefully. You guys generously did provide a new holiday for our group, which was Juneteenth. You allowed for 20 additional hours in each category of vacation for max accrual. So it wasn't that you gave more vacation, but you allowed for folks to maybe collect it more before they had to spend it. You did create a up to 2% match for deferred compensation, so that their retirements can be a little more robust. If they put some skin in the game, you'll match up to 2%. We also have a certificate program where police officers have both intermediate and advanced certificates in this bargaining unit, and they have to earn them, and there's a series of, it's kind of akin to really a college degree in a way, because you have to kind of have 5 years on to even kind of get that intermediate one, and there's a lot of training they have to do. So you guys went ahead and upped each one of those categories by 1.5%, so that it was more on parity with what other comparable towns are doing. And then you allowed for specialty pay for our SRO, which is doing a great job over at the school, but that whole position too, so anybody in the future would also get 5% specialty pay for that. And then there was a matter of PORAC coverage, which is a little additional individual insurance for the job, so that they have a level of support individually, as well as the liability insurance that we hold through CIS. And then we made some changes just due to law, and there was quite a few of them this time around. This was a 3-year contract before, and so in the last 3 years, there's been a ton of changes of law around just cause, around grievances, around Brady issues, and then around even a Supreme Court case called Janus, which changed even the way in which representation and pay for union folks. So we had to change all of the law around that and encapsulate it and memorialize it in our collective bargaining agreement. And then finally, there was incentives for staying physically fit. It's called the ORPAT test that they take once a year. You up that from 250 to 300. Per member if they pass. And then there's a mental wellness piece that you guys instituted, which pays for one mental health wellness check, and then also pays each member $150 if they go to that check. And so hopefully a lot of police departments regionally and even nationally have kind of gone to a model where they're really encouraging folks to just go ahead and go have a talk with a mental health specialist, because it is a very stressful job, to say the least. So that kind of encapsulates this year's or the next 3 years, I guess, pieces that changed from last time. And with that, I'm hopeful that, so the police ratified this already, and so they're in agreement with all of these changes. So if you guys, with your vote tonight and then upon second reading, will gladly have installed a new collective bargaining agreement for 3 years.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the breakdown on this agreement. And thank you and Melissa and Chief Tro, for hammering through this with the union and making it come together. Yeah, I think we all see the value and know the value of our police department. And so I think us working through this in an amicable way and making sure that we are being, as we look at retention and recruiting, that we are definitely, may not be setting the bar necessarily, but we're definitely a great place to work and be a part of. And so thank you both very much for the hard work on this. So I will take a motion.
I'll do it. I move to approve ordinance 1571, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement, CBA, between the city of Canby, Oregon and the Canby Police Association to come up for second reading on May 18th, 2022.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Farwig and seconded by Councilor Banks to approve ordinance number 1571, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement, a CBA, between the city of Canby, Oregon and the Canby Police Association to come up for second reading on May 18th, 2022. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0. Our next ordinance up is ordinance number 1572, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Inc. in the amount of $888,888.88 for construction of the 2022 street maintenance project, our first reading. Mr. Archer, are we going to put Mr. Nelzine on the spot?
Yes, I am. Thank
Okay.
you. While Jerry's coming up, I'll give you a quick intro. This is our annual paving program that we bring you every year, and we did this under our normal public competitive bidding process, and we received 3 bids. This was the low bid, and we find this to be a qualified bidder. What I would like to ask Jerry to do, Mr. Nelzine, our Public Works Director, is just to give you just a brief kind of a summary of what the projects that we're working on in the paving program this year.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, excited to be here, and we got good pricing on our paving, even though fuel prices were up. So Eagle Elsner is here again. They've been doing a lot of good work for us over the years, and they're back. So basically what we got going on is we held it back a little bit because of fuel prices, just to stay under budget, and we're under 2 miles this year. But we're 2 centerline miles. We're also gonna be able to have about 21 ADA ramp improvements with this project. 3 streets, but one of them's got 3 different names on it. It's Pine, Redwood, South Pine, South Redwood, and Southeast 3rd is one. You'll see it's from 99 to Township in front of our police station over there, and it's in bad shape. We have some base failure on the part of it, and we're just gonna try to keep up on the rest of it. The other one is the one you guys have been talking about a lot, is Southeast 13th, from South Ivy to the speed bump by Ackerman School. And that one's on the list, so we'll be able to get through the signal there. We actually have, it made it easier for us now that you guys approved the IGA for us to have maintenance authority with that traffic signal being county and stuff. It helps us save money on traffic control and stuff like that, working just with our Indy. And then the last road that we will be doing is North Redwood, about half of it to 13th place. So from 99 just past the tracks. We're starting just away from the railroad tracks. We've had enough. We've worked enough with the railroad this year, so we're going to start there and go down to 13th place, and we'll take some of the funding from the county money they gave us to work at that. And then we included some maintenance for the city shops and the police station, just to maintain our parking lots. And we threw this, and that'll be paid for out of each fund from all the departments that affects. So that's kind of the project for this year. We'll be starting after July 1 if you guys approve this. And just wondering if you and I think this will, if we, when we're complete here, I believe this will put us up to about 33 and a half center lane miles paved since we started this program.
How many miles?
33 and a half roughly.
Wow,
So,
it's great.
yeah, so if you have any questions.
Well, Jerry, when I was reading through this and I saw the dollar amount, because I have set up a lot of templates and I'll use X's
Yep.
to like denote that I just got to change names or whatever. And so at first I thought this was a typo, but so that's quite the number crunching by Eagle Elsner to get
Yep, pretty interesting.
$888,888.88. Yes, question.
Oh, no, I was going to make a motion.
Oh, please.
Could I say one more thing too, real quick, before we go? I forgot.
All right, Jerry, one more
Before you
thing.
make the motion. This is the first year that I didn't put the list together for paving, and it was hard for me because I've done it for so long. Hassan Iram was our old city engineer, and I worked with him for 18 years, and he recently passed. And so I don't know if you guys knew that. And he's one of the reasons why our roads are so good. So we've now turned it over to another engineer with Kern McLeod, Jeremy, and Spencer Pollock they did this all this year. And so it's kind of a big change for us. So they did a great job, and I just want to thank those two.
Jerry, to your point, and your transition into your role has been really great for our public works team and for the city. A lot of it is because of your tenure in the city and coming off of the presentation we just had, you know where all the bodies are buried. And so I think what you've done with succession planning and giving some of those younger guys the opportunity to get exposed to different things, to, spread their wings, and grow has been tremendous. So I commend you for doing that. That's not easy to do when you've been that guy, to let go of those things and to be able to delegate it and not get elbow deep in trying to do it your way and letting them figure out how to do it. So that's a big part of leadership and people development, which in your department is huge, just like it is in our police department. So thank you for that part of your job that I think a lot of people don't realize is part of your job as well. So I commend you on the hard work that you've been doing on that.
I appreciate that. And I think Spencer would have been here tonight, but our mayor has a reputation for pulling us out of the audience, so.
And I will always do that to you guys, because I almost did it to Mr. Nizer tonight, but he didn't. He'll get his turn.
Okay.
Mr. Pollock will get his turn. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about how to make that happen. Yes.
You have a question?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jerry. How does this budget compare to last year and the year before, and both in terms of dollars and the amount of paving you're going to do?
Comparable. We try to. We put on that. You missed that last presentation and we could send that to you so it would show you, because we put out every year the miles we've done. And when we started this, we were doing around 3 centerline miles, and we've slowly crept down to now like 1.5 miles.
Okay.
And so it just keeps, the price kind of stays the same. It fluctuates with fuel prices.
Yeah.
And we try to, when we have low fuel prices, and we sometimes take breaks, save up our money. We've done that twice, and then wait for fuel prices to drop so oil drops, and then we can do more paving. But comparable, just a little bit less this year. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. That's.
Yeah. And if you want that, let me know. I'd be glad to share that.
Yeah, if you could, I would like to see that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Bangs, were you going to make a motion?
Yes, I move to approve ordinance 1572, authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $888,888.88 for the 2022 street maintenance project to come up for a second reading on May 18th, 2022.
A second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Bangs and seconded by Council President Hensley to approve ordinance 1572, authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Inc. in the amount of $888,888 $1,000.88 for the 2022 street maintenance project to come up for a second reading on May 18th, 2022. Any other discussion? Yes, Councilor Parker.
Jerry, I just want to remind you what the Marines always said, that no plan survives contact with the enemy, and that's never been more true with the labor shortage and inflation. So I don't want you freaking out if something along the way doesn't actually work out, that it may require some flexibility, and you have my support and understanding if adjustments need to be made on this on the fly.
We appreciate that.
Great. Any other comments or discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is mayor business. Just a couple of items. Just throw out there for tomorrow morning is Camby's prayer breakfast. It starts at 7 o'clock and it'll be over at the Cutsforth Thriftway Town Hall. 7 to 8 o'clock. Let's see, the park board will be later this month, but I do get to be the bearer, I guess, of unpleasant news. We have been working with consultants on our park master plan, and we were anticipating to be able to do a joint city council and parks board joint meeting at our next meeting to be able to review the draft, and we just received word late today that unfortunately the contractors that we are using are not ready to put together the draft and get it to us in time for us to have that, one, to have time to read it, and two, have time to be able to discuss it at our next meeting. So I've been assured by our city administrator that staff is on that to get us a date sooner than later. We are running into our budget season as a council and as a city, and so that eats up meeting times and whatnot. So I asked that the council, and I will ask the same of the Parks Board, to just be flexible, that maybe we do an off Wednesday meeting or another night of the week to make sure that we get this and keep it moving. It does have budget implications, it has planning implications, it has livability implications, so there's a lot of pieces to this that are hinging on this getting completed. So unfortunately, I don't like to get to share that because we were anticipating, I think, a March deadline, I think was our initial goal, and we are well past that. Yeah, it's been floating. So Park Board later this month, like I said. I have the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting tomorrow evening, so I'll report on that at the next meeting. And then tomorrow afternoon for Cinco de Mayo, Tin and Paisley have their ribbon cutting tomorrow. So if you're available to swing by, say hello to the new business in town. I know they've been open for a little while, but we're doing the big ribbon cutting tomorrow afternoon. So swing by, say hello, buy some stuff, and kick our new business off in spades.
And it's first Thursday.
And it's, thank you, and it's also first Thursday. So lots of things going on. We will move into councilor comments and liaison reports, and we'll start with Councilor Spoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. One, I wanted to say that in addition to the tragic loss of the Nutter family, the Mendoza family tragically lost father of 4 young kids last week, and so they are in, our thoughts and the city's thoughts as well. I was hoping that we could have a conversation at a very soon city council meeting about the diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. It came up at the last city council meeting. It sounds like there's maybe a little bit more support or interest on the council to move that forward than we've seen in the past. I first brought it up June 3rd, 2020, and sent you kind of what a neighboring city was doing. And then we talked about it a couple of times since then. I talked about it with Councilor President Hensley when she came around and talked to all of us about the things we'd like to accomplish in this term. And it's just never really gotten any forward momentum. Based on some comments at the last city council meeting we had last week, I'm going to assume that there's maybe more support or interest in going that direction. So I'm hoping that we can have some consensus to ask staff to put it on an agenda in the next 1 or 2 meetings so that we can move forward on that a little bit. And yeah, so.
Yeah, let me pull that email back out and take a look at it, and then I'll work with Scott to see what we can do and add that into maybe a future agenda piece.
Yeah, I have maybe some updated information that I'll forward to you tonight or tomorrow morning, and I can copy Scott and Joe on it as well. But to me, it's important that it doesn't get, we have a lot of robust agendas. I just don't want to see this pushed out months and months and months. I think it's overdue, and so I'd like to see us move sooner rather than later.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Councilor Parker.
Let me key off of that, because there's something I've been talking to the mayor about for about 3 years of trying to get some consistency and policy into our boards and committees. And also we had talked in our retreat about having a discussion about those, and also the liaison roles. So we've got a lot of things backed up here. There is one element I did want to broach tonight to see if we could get consensus on, and it's on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Every time we want to have a new term, we have to apply and go out there and present our case. That happens sometimes with the boards and committees, sometimes it doesn't. Our practice has been, in some cases, that if there's 3 positions that are open and 3 people that are on the board or commission, and they want to have that, those names are just rolled over and brought to the consent calendar. In thinking about our, if somewhat awkward, but I think valuable discussion last meeting about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I really think this is something I'd like to ask staff to change our practice. I don't think it changes our policy, but just the practice of each time there is a vacancy, of publicly announcing it, just having the transparency of saying there are these the vacancies, and if you're already on the board or commission and you want to serve again, you put in your application, you come for an interview. But in blank terms, we've got a lot of white men on our boards and commissions, and I think without this tweak, it kind of institutionalizes that. It doesn't open it up for people who might bring some more diversity. So what I'm asking, let me know if this is too big of a lift to have on just a consensus, but just every time we have a board or commission opening, to have it publicly announced and have a recruitment and interviews. That's it for me tonight.
I'll speak to that.
Sure.
Yeah, as you were talking about it, it made me think about the fact that I think in most of our ordinances for boards and commissions, there is a term date to them. They're, I think, often 3 or 4 year terms, depending on the board. But if we just automatically allow a person to stay on a board, it's not really termed at all. It's kind of in perpetuity until they decide differently. I think that, when we look to our council values of doing outreach and inclusion, which is one of our council values, that outreach specifically, it behooves us to say this term has come to an end. Anyone should be able to apply for that once the term comes to an end. And if the person wants to reapply for that seat, they can, but I see no reason to exclude people who aren't currently on a board just because a current board member wants to stay on. I think it's our obligation to our citizens to say, this term has come to an end. Anyone that's interested should have an opportunity to apply for that seat. And if we end up reappointing the same person that was on the board, great, but I don't think that we should be excluding people from the process by not even allowing them to apply or announcing that the term has come to an end.
Okay. It is a very, I think, meaty conversation. I think it'd be more appropriate to have that as an agenda piece versus just a conversation angle of what we're having right now, than moving into just directing staff to come up with something, when I think we need to have a bigger dialogue on that aspect on it. Yes, no?
Well, the problem is we aren't able to set a time certain for that.
well, we have a huge opening now on the 18th. We can probably put that into the agenda to have that conversation.
If I have your assurance, since the charter gives you authority to set the agenda, then yes. But otherwise, we've got an awful lot of openings coming up in June. It's time for expiration dates. And I'd like us to have that discussion before then.
Okay. Scott and I will see about plugging that in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Councilor Parker?
All done.
Okay. Council President Hensley.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Barwick.
Yes, sir. I don't have a report. I do have two things I wanted to say. One, I just want to welcome Councilor Marine. After your appointment last week, over this last week, I've been watching social media posts, and there's so many comments, all of them positive, about your character and who you are as a person. And so I am so excited to get to know you and to serve with you, and welcome. Thank you. The second thing is, it was mentioned, last week got a little bit awkward, and I want to apologize because I don't think that the spirit of how I meant to say things came across the way that I meant it. And a lot of things get said about us, and one thing that is said about me that I agree with is true is that I'm not that smart. I just, from learning difficulties as a youngster and just financial difficulties as, I wasn't able to go to college. I didn't have that privilege, and I didn't learn a lot. I barely graduated high school, and so I don't always formulate my thoughts appropriately. And so I hoped to speak in general as us as a council, and I believe that it came across pointed. And so to that, Councilor Parker, I know you made the motion, and I apologize to you. The other thing I want to say to it is there was comments, and again, I apologize if I misunderstood your comment back to me about a gentleman's agreement, and I just want to say that I will always speak up if I feel that something is wrong, and so I just want to make sure that people know that I won't ever be a part of any kind of gentleman's agreement or any agreement to hide something that I might think is wrong. So I don't think that was meant to me that way, but I just wanted to say I wasn't part of any agreement to not say anything. So if I ever see anything, I'm going to get it wrong probably more times than I'm going to get it right. But I just wanted to say that. So I hope you can accept my apology for it wasn't meant to name call. So
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Councilor Banks.
Thank you. The Library Advisory Board has not met since we had our last meeting. However, we did interview and are forwarding for appointment a new member. We had a vacancy. There were two applicants. One lives outside of town. The other lives inside of town. We have a rule that says you have to have 6 in town, 2 outside of town. So we only interviewed the one in town candidate. Her name is Amy Noss. She's excited to serve on our library board. She's got ideas of things that she'd like to see happen with our library. Kathleen Myron, the chair of the library board, Susie Stutz, the vice chair, and I participated in the interviews. Monday, was it Monday this week? It seems like a year ago, but yeah, just Monday. The Camby School District, 3 elementary schools have had, I think 2 of them had, and one is about to have an open house type of atmosphere for the first time since March 2020, where parents are invited back in for different things. The schools had different kinds of meetings, but normalcy continues to make its way slowly back. And then the high school is going to be breaking ground, I think 2 days after the last day with kids. The oldest building on campus, which has been used mostly as storage, and the custodian's headquarters, right now is undergoing asbestos removal, and it'll get bulldozed, I think starting June 14th. No, June 11th. I forget what the date was. But right after school lets out. So we're going to add a new wing, something like 50,000 square feet of science, classrooms and labs, and some other education space. And it'll be basically kind of like a new facade from the perspective of the football stadium. It'll be the north side of the field there, and it'll look cool. So awesome. It'll be awful all next year because they're not going to get it done in time for school to open. But the history classes are in the opposite side of the building, so it shouldn't be any problem for me. So that's it. Exciting stuff happening with the bond that was passed by voters a few years ago.
Great. Thank you, sir. Art, I know you don't have any liaison reports, but you're more than welcome to make any comments you would like tonight.
Well, first of all, I really want to thank the generosity and the welcome, the warm welcome I've gotten from every single person at this table. It's been refreshing to see that we've got a group that can work together, and everybody's been more than gracious to me, and so I thank you, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve. Especially appreciative of the staff. They were generous enough with their time to give me about, well, I think Joe, you said it was an hour and a half. I think it was more like 2 hours. But we had a long conversation about expectations and, you know, what the law says we can do and what says we can't do, and how to conduct yourself as a counselor. And, you know, you don't know that intrinsically. You have to be told. So I appreciate your very complete and excellent orientation. And I'm just happy to be here. So thank you.
Great. We're glad to have you here, Art. Thank you for applying and being a part of this. So thank you very much.
I did forget to mention one thing that I was going to say is Councilor Spoon, last week you invited me to help champion the diversity, equity, inclusion, and I would like to accept your invitation.
Yeah, I'd love to sit down and chat.
Great. All right. City Administrator Business and Staff Reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few items. First of all, I guess continuing the theme, I also, on behalf of the staff, want to officially welcome Councilor Marine and just tell you that we're very excited to work with you. Melissa and Joe and I met with Councilor Marine on Monday, and as you just mentioned, and we enjoyed that meeting, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. I just want to reiterate what I think we said, which is just an open invitation for you to tap us for any help that you need in getting oriented to this new role. So we look forward to working with you. Let's see, Budget Committee. We've got Budget Committee meetings on May 19th and 26th, 2 consecutive Thursdays at 6 p.m. They'll be in this room here, kind of work session style with the round table. We have sent out, staff sent all of you, plus all of the Budget Committee members, calendar invitations. That date changed, so I just wanted to alert you to that and make sure it was clear in case there was any confusion. We ended up moving those a week later just because of some timing issues and putting all the information together. So originally it was a week sooner starting, but we ended up moving that out. Now, the second meeting is the Thursday right before the Memorial Day weekend. So we've offered in our communication out to everybody if that's a problem, and if enough people were having a problem with that date, maybe people leaving early for that weekend or something, please do let us know and we'll try to figure something out. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. Also wanted to tell you, as far as the budget information goes, we're going to try something new this year and see how it goes, which is normally we would print a full budget document for the draft that comes out with the budget committee, and then we reprint the final permanent budget. So we kind of duplicate that, and it's a pretty big document. We're going to float this out and see how it goes with everyone, that we want to try just doing that electronically with the draft document, and then the final approved document will be the full printed booklet that we usually get. But if anybody wants a print document, you just simply need to let us know that as we send those out to you, and we will be glad to get that for any of you or any of the budget committee members. So we're trying to save some costs and some paper and see if we can't do that electronically, but happy to do those by print if you let us know. Let's see, Council President Hensley and I met somewhat recently with the school district on our conversation around the lease for the swim center and the adult center. We had, I think, a positive, fruitful meeting. I've had some follow-up conversation with Dr. Downs, Superintendent Downs. I think in the fairly near future, Dr. Downs will be bringing an agreement forward to his school board, and I'll be bringing the same agreement forward to you that I think will be something more along the lines of what we've been hoping for, which is a longer term, and so that we have some certainty. But we're still working out the details, so I won't mention all of that just yet, but I think we're going to have something in the relatively near future. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is just kind of our ongoing technology needs and issues in this room. You know, the last couple of years with the COVID pandemic and all the kind of the new way that we've moved into how we do public meetings and adjusting to that, it's been, you know, frankly, it's been just a constant trying to keep up with how we do technology, and obviously we've had our ups and downs with that. And so far tonight, I don't know, you know, yeah, I'm going to jinx this for the last couple of minutes of the meeting here. My mic's about to cut out. But, you know, I just want you to know that we're continuing to work on that. And the other piece of that is I think you're aware, we've sent out communications that we've included you on to all of our boards and committee chairs and all of you in your liaison roles to those committees, that we are, in light of, you know, best practices and in just best transparency possible with our boards and committees. You know, and Melissa's been a big part of this and a big help, and that is just trying to make sure that our meetings are recorded and broadcast, at least on Zoom or, you know, on our YouTube platform that we have, and that people that can't make it to a meeting are able to access the video and the audio of those meetings. It's something that we haven't really done with our boards and committees previously, other than mostly our planning commission. There might be a few other occasions where we've recorded some meetings, but it really is a recommended best practice from the state. So in doing that, we've now kind of, in part of that is, and there actually is, there was legislation that was passed in a couple sessions ago, I think, where it basically requires us to provide some type of digital access to meetings for people that can't attend, and for members that need to attend that are either unable to be in person or off, you know, perhaps in a different place, and you still want to attend. So we're trying to move with that changing way that we do our meetings and council meetings. And so with all of that, you know, we've been kind of trying to patchwork it together, but we're going to make it better than just patchwork. And so we've been working with actually the three of us here and our two-hatted director, Danny Smith, who is our library director, but also is now our IT director. And actually, Danny has some excellent experience and skill set in the IT world, and is able to help lead some of those operations and help us with some changes. But we've, with Danny's leadership and guidance, we've enlisted the support of a consultant that is, frankly, one of the best audio-video consultants in the state. They are on the state kind of pre-qualified bid list, that we can just go out and grab them and enlist their help. And we've already kind of got them working on some information. And it just so happens that this is a group that does a lot of the setups of council chambers or meeting spaces in public, particularly public agencies. They're doing work for, it would appear, for almost every city in our region. Probably not exactly, but really they are doing a lot of cities, and everybody's kind of in this same boat right now where we're adjusting to those needs. So this process is going to take a few months. There will be some incremental changes. We've already tried to kind of adjust some things as we go, but we're talking about kind of a wholesale look at this, and instead of a kind of a patchwork approach, we're gonna bring a full solution that will, frankly, be it will be long-term. it'll provide a stable solution, so we're not always having to kind of tweak things on the fly, and it'll just be a better experience for you as the council, our board members and committees that are going to have a number of meetings are now going to be held in this room so that we can broadcast and record. And then ultimately, and probably most importantly for our public, which gives them the ability to view and perhaps even participate, maybe people that are less mobile, that want to chime into meetings under public comment and those types of things. But this is the most kind of comprehensive that we're looking at this as a permanent solution. And I just say this to you to let you know that, of course, but also that as you're working with your liaison roles with their boards and committees, to feel free to inform them that we've received some feedback that there's some frustration, and we have recognized that we're trying, but it's going to take us a little bit of time, but we're going to get there, and we're going to provide, I think, a much better solution on that. So just as a heads up, that'll be a work in progress. So, and with that, that's all I've got.
Wonderful. Thanks, Scott. Do we have a status update on ODOT completing their work with our quiet zone, or the railroad completing their work?
Yeah.
Or signing off, or whatever it is that we're waiting for?
ODOT's going to be done before our quiet zone.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things here, and we still have our own work to finish the striping. We have announced a couple different times that we're hopeful that we'd get the striping done by such and such date. Our weather we've had one of the wettest April's on record, and we're, I guess, in that same pattern for a little while here. So we're I'll see what we can, if anybody can put in a word, to fix that weather situation. But yeah, Jerry's good, and I appreciated your comments earlier, Mayor. As good as Jerry is, I don't think he can still fix that. But no, we're still working on. We're going to get the striping done, but that's our last piece to be compliant. ODOT, I think, has basically finished their work. But here's kind of the kicker then is we need the railroad to do the final sign off, and because of our delays, that may have pushed some of their scheduling needs. They have limited people that can come in and do the approval, and we may have missed some of that window, so that now gets bumped out a little further. So Jerry and I are still working on what kind of an update timeline will be where the railroad would be able to do a final sign off. We're going to continue to press on our friends at the railroad to see if we can get that sooner than later, but it may move our quiet zone start date out a little bit. And we're just doing the best that we can.
So typically, summer doesn't start until July 5th, 4th, around here sometimes. So can we just get them on the calendar for July and just be good with that? Can we do that?
I think July is a safe date. I think that's our worst case scenario.
This reminds me of...
Yeah, Jerry's, that's good. What's that, I'm sorry?
I was going to say, this reminds me of when I had to replace a septic tank a couple of years ago, and you had to have 15 days of dry weather, and we determined in December that we had to replace it. And so we got to 13 days, I think, 4 times, and then it rained. So I feel the pain there, Jerry.
Yeah, I think, in all seriousness, I think from what I'm gathering, I think July is a worst case scenario. We're going to continue to try to work back from that, but it really has been beyond our control. We can't finish our part with the wet weather, and then we're at the mercy of when the railroad will come to it. But we are going to continue to kindly work with them and see if they can, get here as soon as they can to just go through and sign off. But we'll keep you posted. Okay. Thank you for that question.
Nope, perfect. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Along the lines of ODOT, we had all received an email from somebody asking about 99E. Apparently, he sent it to us some time ago, and none of us replied. So I replied. I'm just letting everyone know. I probably should have just replied all, but I said that it's still our road and that they're planning on redoing it. But I don't know if anyone else replied. Maybe all 7 of us should. It's probably not
The email
necessary.
that I got only had you and I and the mayor on it. So
Oh, I
I'm sure.
didn't, really? Just the
Yeah.
3 of us?
Yes, and I emailed the mayor. Did you get my email about it today?
I've not, I checked
It was just this-
email like
or
briefly
late this
today.
morning. It was late this morning.
I didn't, actually, I just saw your names and I assumed it was all of us.
Okay.
Well, I'll let you guys know what the email said.
All right, great. Citizen input? No? Okay. Action review.
All right, you have approved the consent agenda, adopted ordinance number 1570, and passed ordinance numbers 1571 and 1572 to second readings on May 18th, 2022.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to invite our newest counselor to make the motion to adjourn.
Wait, before you make that motion, I would like to ask the council just to stick around for a minute. We need to just touch on something outside of this, so, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Councilor Marine.
I move that we close this meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Camby, good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.